once revealed the 8 most beautiful women of all time. And coming from him, that meant something. Those legendary blue eyes had seen everything: fame, temptation, heartbreak, and the most glamorous era Hollywood will ever know. For decades stood as the gold standard of masculine beauty. But what made him different wasn't just how he looked, it was how he saw other people. A longtime friend who knew him for over 40 years once said, "Didn't just notice surface beauty, he saw character, intelligence, that rare quality that makes someone unforgettable." And in his later years, after decades of marriage to Joanne, and a career spent beside some of the most stunning women in film history, occasionally shared private thoughts about beauty that went far beyond the typical Hollywood list. Yes was famously loyal. He even had that famous quote about fidelity. "Why go out for a hamburger when you have steak at home?" But that didn't mean he was blind. He just appreciated beauty differently than most men in Hollywood. Tonight, we reveal's personal list of the 8 most beautiful women of all time, not only for their looks, but for the unique qualities believed elevated them from simply attractive to truly unforgettable. And his list begins where his heart always lived. 1. Joanne, the beauty that kept him home. This list always began and ended with the same name, Joanne, his wife of 50 years. In an industry where marriages often dissolved faster than film in a developing room and became one of the rare exceptions, their love survived fame, tragedy, temptation, and time. A family friend once said, Joanne was always his number one, would talk about other beautiful women like an artist discussing aesthetics, but when he spoke about Joanne, his voice changed. It became reverent. His famous hamburger and steak quote became a cultural legend, but those close to him believed it barely scratched the surface of what he truly felt. Once said something far more revealing. Her beauty wasn't loud, it was permanent. Joanne had what described as intelligent beauty, a rare combination of physical attractiveness, sharp wit, and artistic integrity. She wasn't defined by her looks, she was defined by who she was. And their marriage wasn't perfect. Drinking caused tension at certain points, and the death of their son in 1978 tested them in ways few couples survive. But through it all, this admiration for Joanne never faded. Even in their 70s, friends would catch looking at Joanne across a room like he still couldn't believe she was real. Not nostalgia for her youth, but appreciation for who she was at every age. Fort Joanne represented beauty that evolved, rather than faded. And from that deeply personal love, we move to a beauty so untouchable, she became royalty. 2. Grace Kelly, Silence in a Loud Room. When worked with Grace Kelly in 1958 on The Left-Handed Gun, He encountered a woman on the verge of leaving Hollywood forever. Kelly had recently married Prince Rainier III of Monaco and was completing her final film obligations before stepping into her new role as Princess of Monaco. A crew member from the production said, "Grace was the kind of woman you couldn't forget 5 minutes after meeting her." What struck wasn't just her beauty, it was her composure. Hollywood sets are chaotic, loud, frantic, but Grace Kelly moved through it all with a calm that made everyone else look out of control. Reportedly described her perfectly. She looked like silence in a loud room. Grace didn't demand attention. She didn't need dramatic entrances. She simply existed with such natural elegance that everything around her seemed less refined by comparison. One film historian later said, "Believed Grace Kelly was the only actress who seemed more natural as a princess than as a movie star." And he meant it as the highest compliment. Her beauty didn't depend on lighting, makeup, or the camera. Grace Kelly looked regal everywhere, on set, at lunch, walking through a hallway. She didn't change with the environment. The environment changed around her. For Grace represented the rarest kind of beauty. Outer elegance matched perfectly with inner dignity. But next comes a woman who was the complete opposite. 3. Elizabeth Taylor, the woman who detonated rooms. If Grace Kelly was composed elegance, Elizabeth Taylor was pure intensity. Encountered Taylor throughout their careers, and even though they never co-starred, her presence was impossible to ignore. A producer once said, admired her intensity, especially those famous violet eyes. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just beautiful. She was volcanic. Reportedly said, "She didn't enter a room, she detonated it." There are beautiful women who want to be admired from a distance. Elizabeth wanted to be felt up close. And what respected most wasn't just her face, it was her fearlessness. Taylor lived publicly with all her contradictions, multiple marriages, health struggles, weight fluctuations, and emotional chaos, but she never hid from it. A mutual friend said, respected how Elizabeth never pretended to be perfect. She faced everything in the open. He found that authenticity incredibly beautiful. Even aging didn't scare her. Once said Elizabeth Taylor was one of the only stars who seemed to enjoy growing older, because she didn't fight time with desperation. She owned every phase of her life. 4. Elizabeth represented beauty with courage behind it. And from American intensity, we turn to international glamour. 4. Loren, the woman who made men irrelevant. Worked with Loren in 1967's Lady L, and he never forgot her. A crew member once said, joked she had the kind of face that makes you forget your own name. But her beauty wasn't the full story. Loren had something even rarer: self-possession. She didn't shrink herself to fit Hollywood. She kept her Italian identity, her accent, her curves, her confidence, and she carried herself like she didn't need anyone's approval. Reportedly said, every man in the room was irrelevant when she walked in. Not because she tried to dominate, but because she didn't seek permission to exist fully. Unlike many beautiful actresses who protect their image at all costs, Loren wasn't afraid to look messy, emotional, aged, or imperfect if the role demanded it. Admired that. He saw her as an actress first and a beauty second, and that made her beauty feel more real. From Loren's sensual strength, we move to a woman who changed beauty standards forever. 5. The hypnotic rule breaker. Never worked with, but like the rest of the world, he was fascinated by her impact. Represented something new. Not polished studio glamour. Not perfect hair and carefully controlled poses. She was raw, undone, unfiltered. A friend once said, described as having that look where the rules didn't apply to her. Reportedly said, she wasn't polished, she was hypnotic. Most screen beauties of the era looked like they were asking for admiration. Looked like she didn't care if you approved at all. She moved like someone completely inside her own experience, not performing for anyone. And that freedom made her revolutionary. 4. Represented beauty as rebellion, something natural, self-directed, and modern. And from that wild freedom, we shift to the softest kind of magic. 6. The woman who floated. Of all the women on this list, was the biggest departure from conventional beauty standards. In an era dominated by curvy bombshells, was slender, delicate, graceful, almost otherworldly. Someone who worked with both actors once said, was graceful, kind, and striking in her quiet way. Reportedly praised her eyes, saying they looked like they'd seen another world. And there was truth in that. Survived war, hunger, hardship, and carried that history in her gaze. What made her even more beautiful was her humility. She never acted like a sex symbol. She didn't demand attention. She simply drew you in. Reportedly said, she didn't flirt, she floated. And unlike so many stars who feared aging, became even more herself with time, transitioning into humanitarian work with UNICEF, aging naturally, and carrying dignity into every stage of life. 4. Represented beauty as character made visible. And from that ethereal grace, we move to a woman who could freeze a room with one glance. 7. The most dangerous woman in a cocktail dress. admired for more than her beauty. He admired her power. A producer who knew both stars once said could unnerve you with one glance. From her very first film, she carried herself like she belonged in the room. No hesitation, no insecurity, no need to be approved. Reportedly called her the most dangerous woman in a cocktail dress. And he meant it as praise. Didn't try to be pretty. She tried to win. Her beauty came from attitude, intelligence, and absolute confidence. From the way she spoke, to the way she stared down powerful men like she was their equal. For represented beauty as strength, not softness. And finally, we reach the last woman on the list, a face that defined a new era. Audrey Mack, the look of heartbreak before it happened. Encountered Ali Mack during the early 1970s, when Hollywood beauty was shifting away from polished glamour towards something more natural and emotionally accessible. Mack was the perfect symbol of that change. A director once praised her rawness and vulnerability. Ali wasn't constructed like the studio stars of earlier decades. She felt discovered. Her breakthrough role in Love Story made her the face of a new kind of beauty, fresh, emotional, relatable. Reportedly said, she looked like heartbreak before it happened. Most actresses tried to conceal vulnerability. Ali made vulnerability her power. And that emotional transparency made her unforgettable. For Mack represented the evolution of beauty standards, less perfection, more humanity. Final thoughts outro. Looking back at its list, what stands out isn't a ranking of the most flawless faces in history. It's something deeper. Didn't just admire beauty. He understood it. From Joanne's permanent, evolving beauty to Grace Kelly's quiet royalty, from Elizabeth Taylor's volcanic intensity to Loren's confident sensuality, from freedom to ethereal grace, from commanding power to Ali Mack's emotional honesty. Believed the most beautiful women weren't just pretty. They were complete human beings. Because true beauty doesn't exist in isolation. It's what happens when appearance and character align. And that's what saw better than almost anyone. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like it and subscribe to the channel for more classic Hollywood stories. And let us know in the comments, which of these women do you think was the most beautiful, and why? Until next time, remember, true beauty isn't just what catches the eye. It's what captures the imagination and stays in the heart long after the first impression fades.